Yesterday, Sunset was where M80 started their comeback to make their way into the grand finals, and today might just be the first nail in the coffin as 2G dismantle them on the first map here in the grand finals. Going to Sunset, it was an opportunity for M80 to show us what they've learned from that last series, but this was a 2G that, Jen, the confidence, the shots, right from the get-go, M80 tried to set a pace. 2G were having none of that. It was all playing on their terms.
Yeah, I thought in this rematch that this was going to be a closer Sunset. Just a reminder that it was 13-8 the first time that they faced off in playoffs, and now it's 13-5. 2G just get better. We know they have these strong starts, but something that we hope that M80 were going to learn about was the post plants. They stay on the site, they let themselves get boxed in, and often rely on clutch or kick scenarios, which maybe we just need M80 to heat up a bit more in the microwave, but we'll see. But 2G had very successful retakes, 5 defuses out of the 8-round wins that they had. Out of the 12 defensive rounds that 2G had, they managed to get first bloods in 8 of those. So they were always on the upper foot in the early part of the round.
You're talking about the clutch or kicked. I mean, 2G was definitely kicking them around from multiple different angles as well. These 2G members, the amount of times they were allowed to get these 2-3 Ks and just the individual pop-off performances was fantastic. This is a team that didn't need warm-up. They didn't need to, kind of get used to the grand finals. It is a team that was really showing Wyatt that they're ready for this series. They're ready for this grand finals. They're ready for that Ascension spot. And M80 yet again find themselves on a deficit.
Yeah, Jen brought attention to those first kills, and I'm about to do the same. I mean, you can see, given spikes at the top of the scoreboard, we can look that he has 5 of them. 4 of them are with Silence. That duo was just dominating the server. Everyone else was contributing too. It literally looks like yesterday. The only difference was that at the very beginning, you guys heard me. I'm like, hold on. M80, they got the pistol. BCJ, he's going to have his thrash ready for round 3. He had it. They win the bonus on round 3. Oh my God. And then, yeah, it didn't matter. Then from then on out, it looked exactly like yesterday. Their opponent could do no wrong. Every player is hitting every shot. So that's tough. Time to reset and see if we can do what they did yesterday, but this time on map 2 and not wait until map 3.
It's just funny to see 2G take a page out of M80's book to play further back. I mean, look how many blinds that M80 had with the Omen, Yoru, Gecko, Breach. Like, you kind of want to sit back and play for retakes, and 2G just knew how to play their composition. And I wonder if the Neon continues to be the M80 kryptonite, because that's what really killed the M80 yesterday. They had a hard time handling Dante. This could be the same story today.
I mean, there must be multiple kryptonites out in the server then for M80, because where the downfall started, Wyatt, you already talked a little bit more about it, but let's dive back and look at that round 4, because when Silence is allowed to pop off in such a fashion, it's tough going for M80.
Yep, I mean, they're just hitting into the site. He hits 2 shots. This is still winnable. 3v5, net, perfect flank timing, Vandal in hand, beef, and then he dives to Silence. And then from there, Vandal recovered, Silence goes back through link side. The players on site are collapsed upon. If Net just got the 1 kill there and retained that position with the Vandal, even though it was 3 versus 4, M80 are going to win out that situation. Silence wins that round with the 6 sheriff shots and completely flips the game on its head. Like I was saying before, M80 just converted the bonus because BCJ had already gotten access to the thrash, and the Net popped off himself with a 3K just that round prior to the beef. And so just from there, disaster. Silence was taking over the game, and then once you're on attack and Spike is heating up on Neon, GG.
Yeah, and it's tough too. I mean, we highlighted at the top of the show that Silence was a duelist who also is on other roles, as we got to see the Cypher on this map that could absolutely pop off and change the series. And now, looking at the map 2 in the series with the Icebox, remind you all, some of the other things that we highlighted from 2G was Silence, the aggression from the get-go, and how he was able to pick M80 apart. M80, Jen, this has been a map that for a long time has been quite strong in 2G. It did not look like that up against them, and this is the opportunity now for them to flip that script, try and take it here, but we'll have to see if that 7-hour chat they had after that loss will have any results on this.
Yeah, M80 are dumping every hour they can into fixing, perfecting, and hoping to execute. They go to Icebox. They had a good time against All Knights yesterday, 13-5. They play this without a duelist. It's off of just, again, very flash-heavy play with this team, with the KO, the Gecko, and of course, Koala Noob now is going to be on the Omen. So they're flexible enough to change different roles and to deal with whatever duelist is on the other side. But how will they handle Silence on the Jet now that he had an MVP-like performance on his Sentinel, and now he gets to play some offense? So I'm excited for this Icebox.
I mean, you're talking about the composition for M80, and with Silence being able to consistently get that first blood, stick around on the site, and not let M80 play into the strength of being able to utilize all of that util consistently. That same composition that has done them so well throughout this Wyatt was ultimately their downfall. I doubt at this point in the competition we see composition changes.
No.
So I think a lot of it is just how they go to approach this. And when you have a fragging Jet on the opposing end, that's a little tough.
Yeah, if Silence can recreate what he did last time against M80, which, by the way, dealt them their second loss on the map in 2 years. M80 are 14-2 on the map all time, and they've never played with a duelist. It has always been non-duelist comps. So they really have mastered this map, at least to some extent, right? It's always been a home map for them, but it's a must-win in my mind when we're looking at the rest of the pool in this series. It's not going to get any easier. They have Bind at the very end, which they permaban. Hey, Icebox is a must-win for them in my mind, and it's a map where they certainly can win. We saw Nismo yesterday just crushed All Knights in that series. Crushed them. What did he go, like 24 for 9? So look, they've got to bounce back here. I think if they don't, I mean, listen, funny to say after yesterday's game, but I think it would be too little too late if they can't take this map.
And this is going to be...
Lightning can strike twice?
I think it's going to strike hard for sure when it comes to 2G, because they picked offense first, so they can dictate the pace. They know they have M80 in an awkward spot. They beat them down harder than they did last time on Sunset. I think 2G have made huge improvements. I mean, talk about the turnaround from the last week of group stage to the first match of playoffs, going from losing to winning against M80. You got to be careful of 2G's offense off of this Jet and how M80 are going to try to mitigate that pressure. Are M80 going to want to stay on the site? Are they going to give it up and play for retakes? It's going to be about mind games. Without that duelist for M80, it's going to be about the util. And M80 is one of the best they're one of the best when it comes to those initiators.
When they're warmed up and ready to go. I think if this was third in the series, that we see a very different Icebox. But this is where we have to see the mentals for M80 coming in strong, being able to just turn that switch on and be able to bounce back now. I don't think a loss on Icebox, in my opinion, is all done and dusted for M80, but I do think it looks absolutely dire. And for 2G to have that victory that they had on Sunset, we're talking about momentum for the teams and how it's important that M80 gets it. I think winning Sunset in this entire best of 5 was that momentum needed to be able to try and snowball these early rounds and force M80 into that very uncomfortable position of, well, you better turn up or you're about to get this upset. So it's already with that 13-5 on Sunset looking really strong here, Jen, for this 2G end. And I mean, the Spike, the Silence, you can talk about every one of these members. They have shown us this depth and complexity through the tournament that they can fire on all cylinders at any point.
Yeah, and since 2G play with only one smoke, they only play with the Viper, they don't have the double smoke with the Omen the way that M80 do, it's going to be about using the Sova from Zap to really flesh out these important power positions around the site, where yellow box on the left side of the map, or just the different nooks and crannies on the right side of the map. So a lot of weight on Zap's shoulders to really convert the value of Sova here, and to kind of figure out the tempo that M80 are playing at with the Viper walls, with the smokes that Koala Noob has, and how 2G can strike early and strike fast.
I mean, you're talking about Zap, and Zap was somebody Wyatt at the beginning of the day was highlighted, and Zap also had a great series last map as well. Some of these skills, phenomenal. So if we're looking for that impact, he's already proven on the day he is showing up. He just has to carry that through now to Icebox.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, listen, looks like everyone, it's just like yesterday with All Knights, everybody's showing up so far. M80, nothing really to write home about individually. Nismo on this map, though, is the one map in the M80 pool where he is unleashed. You know, we forget a little bit how strong of an individual fragging player he is because he's not on that hard flex playing Raze kind of classic role in Valorant. He's just locked in on Breach. Aside from this map, where he plays the KO and plays sometimes for others, throwing pop flashes. They have a lot of little plays where Koala Noob, for instance, will teleport across to back yellow when they're executing on B. He'll pop flash for Koala. There are moments where he sets up, but there are a lot of moments where he's playing the KO intentionally, very selfishly, to put himself in position to get kills, flashing past their Viper wall, past the dark covers that their Omen Koala Noob will be putting down, and taking fights himself. You have to be looking for him to step up and start driving their team to some round wins.
I'm glad you brought up the KO because this is something new for 2G. Only the last 3 matches have they really used the KO and even a jet. Previously, they kind of 2G adapted a similar comp to M80 of not playing a duelist and playing heavy initiators, and now they don't play the Gecko at all. So a lot of important information comes out of that Sova, but also anti-utility with that KO. And I think a lot rides on Silence and his performance, which I don't think we really have to doubt based on how many First Bloods and just how many rounds were started off on a good foot on 2G's side.
I mean, M80, though, we're talking about, I mean, that dismantling done by a Neon over on Sunset. And if we're talking about how rough of a start the series was yesterday due to Dante's hands on that Neon, it was a Neon that later on in the series that we did see the individual members of M80 come up and stop, showcasing that these aggressive duelists that do have the firepower to back up that talk, they do have the individual skill to be taking them down. Koala Noobs down their duels a couple of times. And we can see maybe the same here on Icebox. And I think we absolutely need that. We need to be able to see kind of these different members of M80 go toe-to-toe with Silence here. And I think that's going to be key. Because I think if Silence is consistently allowed to be getting these First Bloods, consistently winning out on these duels, why it's going to look rough.
Definitely. And that is one of the very obvious fundamental differences with 2G, their roster, as opposed to All Knights, who M80 defeated yesterday. There is clearly a difference with All Knights when Dante Deus is not playing Neon. His other duelists do not look as good as his Neon, and when he wasn't on Neon, Koala Noob took over the server. However, with 2G, they have 2 players that can round out playing all of the duelists in God mode. Spike will play the Neon, and when the Jet and the Raze are needed, Silence will play in God mode. Totally different story than what M80 had to deal with All Knights yesterday. There's just a totally... It's a different echelon of firepower on this team. They're more well-rounded. The players have more flexibility with their agent pools.
And for M80, it's weird because they've admitted they just forget how to play the game. They go on autopilot. They make stupid mistakes. You kind of pointed out some of it in your clip that you pulled earlier. And at what point does M80 get online? Because yesterday it was map 3. If it was a best of 3, they wouldn't be here. So is it going to take an M80 O2 backs against the wall for them to kind of wake up and smell the coffee? Or is it going to be a sweep in 2G's favor? Because that was a dominant showing from 2G's side to improve that much on Sunset. But Icebox is M80's arena, and we'll see how this boils down.
We're talking about the grand finals of Ascension. Winner moving on into partnership. See them in VCT Americas next year. You're talking about those mistakes, those little mistakes that have plagued them, and they need to be cleaned up right about now. You've made it through the groups. You've made it through playoffs. There is absolutely no second chances. And with Icebox ahead and how badly of a beating they took last time from 2G, it is an opportunity to showcase that you have that ability to be able to learn from those mistakes, to be able to adapt, overcome, be able to close this out, and try and push this best of 5 to the absolute limit. And 2G have shown us through this upper bracket that they are not a foe to be messing around with. If you make that little mistake, you're not going to have the opportunity to really be able to try and fix it in that moment, Wyatt. They are so good at that instant punish, and that's dangerous for this M80 that haven't woken up yet on today.
Definitely. I think the map pool is really of the utmost importance here, and I really do think that Icebox is a must-win for M80. It is the only map in the pool that I look at and I give them the edge. They have historically been fantastic on this map. 2Game has been a bit more inconsistent. They beat M80 last time, but they've lost it to their Brazilian rivals Galores a number of times in the past. So I have to favor M80 here on this map if they're going to be in good form. But if they're going to be in that same poor form, lose their pick here, they have to win Abyss, which 2Game are sick on, Haven, which 2Game are sick on, and Bind, which they permaban. So this is a must-win to me. And maybe they'll make me eat my words and do the same crazy comeback yesterday.
I mean, getting into the Blacklight Agent Select at this point, there's not necessarily many surprises. What we have to see is who's going to be showing up on the day. You have set the stakes for Icebox. That momentum in the uncertainty of the map pool going on forward. M80, this is where we need to see that turnaround. The map that they were so dominant on, feared on throughout the season, and 2Game showing they do not have that fear. They're willing to go toe-to-toe with you. This Star Jet, everyone else able to step up at any capability. M80, it's time to show what they're made of. And if not, 2G are going to be up 2 in the series. It's time to head on over to Icebox for map number 2 and head on back to our casters, Vansili and Shift.
Yeah, thank you, friends. Vansili, I think we need to take a moment here and actually do a little bit of damage to Wyatt's ego. I know at the beginning of the show he was saying he hates to see duelist head-to-head stats. Well, the good news is there's not a second one to go up against, but the problem is the whole talking point relies upon what Silence could do. He was a first blood machine, an off-kill machine. He was everywhere when they played this matchup last time around.
Yeah, he got so many opportunities, even Bladestorms and Offs, to get behind M80's positioning, especially in these pulse plant scenarios. And when he was playing a defensive side, that really threw M80 for a loop. So I'm actually going to throw up my copium to start, right? We had a slow start for M80 to kick things off on Sunset. They got dismantled 5-3. It's a similar start as what they had against All Night yesterday, where they totaled 7 rounds in 2 maps. So thankfully, at least in the first map, they already got 5. So already past the halfway mark. It can only go up from there. And secondly, where M80 started to pop off was actually on Icebox 2, where they started to bring it back. Now it's our second map of this series. There's a big chance here to turn this into a 1-1 in the score on the scoreline. But to get back to your point here, Shift, you were mentioning how Silence is so good on this Jet, on this duelist role, but I think once again it's the preparation around how they were working the macro around M80 was so nice. Remember the piss around too, when 2Game was starting off on the defensive side. They basically read how M80 would start the attack with the pop flash through the smoke and just fight back to contest towards B main. And maybe this time is a point here where 2G wants to start on the attack, so you don't go into those same mind games as before. 2G now has a chance to take the attack, to dictate the pace on their side, and just to make sure that they could smother M80 with Silence being the spearhead at the front here to get these openings, as all of 2G are starting the pistol round on their attack side, and M80 has 4 to greet them.
Not sure if the Observer is throwing some subliminal messaging, but Net is the one player who's trying to ascend twice. So how about an opportunity here as the defense will step forward beyond the overall rope platform, and that'll be enough for a very clean 3-for-1 exchange, Net being part of the picture.
Yeah, just Orb already stacked up in that spot. Red.
Bot coming back.
Now 2 players.
Looks like my co-commentator and Vansili may have disconnected from our call here, so
I'm back now. Yeah, somehow everything grows. Okay. Gotta love that. Gotta love that.
Well, I promise you this, friends, that the breakdown was perfect, as it often is. So
thank you.
We'll be back into this here in a moment. We'll let Vans have a spark note moment here as soon as this fades away, as Luis will be in a pretty impossible situation, 1v4, but has been able to salvage at least something out of this round with the spike plant. Maybe a chance to play off of his own wall for some isolation. Screen will drop. He sees 2 contestants over towards yellow. Excuse me? And no, the snake bite may have made things a bit of a mess. Nismo has to step off as soon as he gets to halfway, and M80 will take the pistol.
Yeah, and you see that backing off is like, wait, I'm not getting hit by this. So, and they're actually just trying to decide who they want to give the ult points to as soon as possible, because now Xander gets 2 kills, would be able to get some sort of defuse, but it's Nismo that's going to pick it up after all, because yesterday as well against All Knights, Nismo was able to get 3 null command right into the first half, and he was activated on that map. And the KO null command added so much value here on how they wanted to take the attack side on their A side takes. So this could be a potential good idea here for Nismo to activate these on the defensive side with the flood retakes that they could do here on the side of M80.
Yeah, and that's the big key, right? We kind of talked about this a little bit on Sunset, not just, of course, in the previous map, but also in their previous matchup. But the same thing exists here. When you have no duelist, yeah, the whole idea is get your utility to find effectiveness, run through it, find success. And now all of a sudden M80 you're looking to still keep the aggressive pedal down, just making sure that 2G don't even get a chance to execute. So it's looking for first contact here for M80 early in this defense, for hopefully just an angle-based first blood, and then you make this retake if you have to do it that much easier because you've got the numbers.
Yeah, just a simple thing there that you have to bring into your games here, chat. Just make sure that somebody's going to break that dart. That was big there for Quality to be able to get the opener. And now for M80 to flood back in the A site.
Yeah, and that's another thing to keep an eye on as well. You know, we kind of talked about this when we were casting over this matchup the last time around. Silence getting over towards the top side of A rafters was an issue. This time M80 not allowing any sort of dashing or flashing behind the spike site. So again, it's this level of we're putting together an aggressive front line as soon as the barriers drop. Now, if we do get that numbers advantage, let's just make sure no one dives through us, so that way, again, we have got a more successful attempt at retaking. Again, this is early, friends. It's just a pistol and an anti-eco round, but if those mentalities stay strong and true to the rest of this half, that would be a brilliant adjustment in my mind for M80 dealing with a thing that really thwarted them when they played 2G a couple days ago.
100%. You can definitely see even in my tone of voice now, seeing that M80 is able to convert a pistol round and anti-eco to a 2-0 point, maybe winning the bonus. I'm not going to get excited about it yet, because 2G could definitely turn it around. So going to the map 3 though, into round number 3 rather, M80 are not going for that full aggressive focus back towards the A side, and now a little bit of a change of pace from 2G as well. Instead of going for a recon dart, it's a knife just to make sure that it can be potentially unbreakable, and you scan how many players are close, and they only spot Koala Noob.
It's one of those things of just, you know, do your homework before you jump into the fray, and that is an owl drone on one side, a knife on the other. So now you have the opportunity to still possibly use things like this recon dart for Zap. Quality up top goes completely unchecked, able to take 2, but he does not get away. It's an even trade, and then the numbers for 2G will allow them on for a plan.
And again, another one of those moments where you're bringing in your bonus drop from M80, so you respect these one-and-done positions where, again, the beginning of the round, the knife actually hit Koala Noob. That should have been something that they checked here on the left side, but he stayed tucked in towards the pipes. It's hard for them to get the angle, and then he gets a beautiful 2K and a chance here for M80 to take this site back, because Spike is actually very low on HP.
Oh, the Bosch doesn't get fully into the corner. Zap is still holding strong, and whoa, he's able to find all 3. So another moment where 2G are allowed to hold an angle, and they make good use of it. We saw it a couple of times in Sunset. Luis in particular, a couple of moments where he was able to put together 2 or 3 in a row, and this time it's Zap to get us kicked off to stop the bonus of M80.
Yeah, you can see how that one molly that missed, everybody was still focused to fight towards the front, because like nobody's going to swing on the back of dice. So that one piece of utility that was missed here from M80 became a huge round for Zap, who continues to be ultra vocal in these multi-rounds that he's getting here so far in this series, because he hasn't been active in all of the rounds because all of these kills are stolen by Luis or by Silence. But when he needs to step up, man, he's getting multi-kills after multi-kills this series so far.
This is something that we had seen from M80 a lot on their Icebox in their region of North America during Challengers. You double stack with Xander playing off of Koala Noob. Op is in hand. You had the early knife as well. So you're able to at least communicate that there were a couple of members playing over towards A. But here we go. Here's a different look for 2G. Little pop flash through the poison cloud. Nisbo's still decent for 1. Koala Noob misses his opener. But the trade from Xander is decent. Follow-up flash comes through. That's just to create space. And Spikes will be left here kind of hoping he finds timing, because he's stuck with the spike at the moment.
has to come down to this fight towards A main. If Pricey can open things up, and I love at least that M80's closing that gap because Spike is stuck there. They want to at least activate on that side. Pricey even loses his fight towards the A side, and all these duels back in favor of M80. A nice little play towards the end for BCG for the last kill, but overall, it almost looked like from the setup that it was a very weak side towards A. You saw that net was being set up all the way towards the back, so if you watch into the tube, if players are lurking up, the turret's going to guarantee if they're actually committed past that. There's an alarm bot watching middle, so for M80, actually they had 2 spots for a weak side where Nismo got killed, and also where they were weak side on A because they wanted to play the Thrash retake. So it was still a great start for M80 for 2G to come through that smoke and get that first blood onto Nismo. But you saw the other two holding back towards that B main, able to trade it out and contest those extremities where 2G cannot take advantage of.
No, exactly the case. And I do have to agree with you. I think 2G trying to play through tube instead of through either B or A main in the face of that Thrash is actually pretty, I think, keen towards being able to get yourself a potentially deep post plant. This time, though, knives are exchanged early. Opening shot from Koala Noob misses. Follow-up is decent, but Zap is there with the trade with the Guardian. Hunter's Fury now ready for Zap. VCJ stuck right in front of the spike site. Fragment about to fade away. VCJ left with just Wingman and a Thrash. And he gets caught. Will now obviously be able to use it, but as silence will drop, now the round becomes a little bit more plausible for M80 to put together, especially with the spike on the ground. Long-range angles also coming through decently, but Zap, a little more magic for you. Swaps over after the double from the Guardian. Now has the Vandal. He's collected the spike. He sees that up top, and Zap will pull a 1v3. Blacklight Thrifty, not like that.
Another multi-kill for Zap. Highlighted by the desk as an IGL, as the one making the calls, but this time also fragging for the team. And they've mentioned it during the group stages. We've seen it during the group stages. He's been so loud and vocal until 2G started losing here this series, where they almost didn't make it through the group stages. It had to come down to All Knights beating TSM for them to get second breath into the playoffs. And now he has all the confidence to step up once again and be as loud as he could be, because he is making this happen for 2G.
Oh boy. How does that quote go? Special teams, special plays, special players. And that may be the difference maker today. Nismo, first blood good. Backs off. Koala Noob is going to be left to stay deep. The knife is in a good spot, and Koala Noob is going to line up a couple. Okay, Paranoid to follow. They know Zap is nearby, and surely he doesn't pull this one off, although I won't rule him out of the picture considering what he's done so far today.
And as an IGL, you have the game sense, right? So there's a possibility here that you could have and contest some sort of opening. Because look at him walk back towards middle. There is actually 2 players watching it, but very passively for net. First contact, it is going to be Xander. And then you can actually swing right away after. And the recon art gives a tell here that Zap was contested a little bit further back, and that push moves forward towards the belt. And that's how you isolate fights.
Yeah.
And finally here, Xander closes in.
Yeah, not bad at all. And I love that M80 just don't cower after the play comes through. Again, we talked about some of the things that they may be trying to do here defensively compared to the last time they played 2G. A lot of it was back out of the site, play 5v5 retakes. We've got all this utility. Pop open a wall, throw all your flashes, dive on in. That did not work particularly well versus 2Game because they were playing so far aggressive that utility was just being counteracted by the dynamic positions they were holding. So this time around, they're trying to stay aggressive, contest them in the first 30 seconds. At worst, you're dealing with what, like 3v3 situations if they do end up allowing a plant to come through? That's still fine because you hold the advantage in terms of retake utility. So I love the mentality shift here from M80. Let's see how long 2Games still get spoiled by this.
Yeah. And I'm still okay with 2G continuing to contest towards the A side to kick things off, because M80 are being very proactive of where they're trying to place Koala Noob with the op at the very beginning. So sometimes it's opting towards B main, sometimes towards A main. So they just want to make sure, especially when you're adding that pressure back towards the wall, back towards the front side of the A site, you force the Viper wall to come up, you gain some space, you can control the orb, and maybe you're seeing a little bit of lack of how can I say it, M80 pushing a little bit too much and then get punished out of that, right? So
overheating,
lack of discipline is what I'm trying to look for here. So that might work in that sense. But with this timeout now, with not contesting towards the B side, maybe now with the Owl Drone, you can start figuring out here how they're holding the defaults now for the defensive side for M80.
Yeah, the other thing though, I think for Tugan that you have to keep in mind is, hey, you may have to be facing up against this operator still, which is something that makes 100%. That B-long play very difficult to deal with. Now, it won't be in play here. The finances are not healthy enough for it, but it's going to be a save regardless for 2G. Pistol upgrades, Hero, Vandal, plus the knives. You also have Viper's Pit, Null Command, Hunter's Fury. There's a lot of potency still, just based off the ultimates that they can use, pending that they do find a way to get the plant down.
And now this is an important timeout to call, because you may start investing these ults around the Hero Rifle, around the Blade Storm here, and that early Owl Drone, and now the Nice Spot's 3.
M80, good for the first. Follow Paranoia though, decent quality. Yep, that will be enough to put them in the blender, and nowhere to go for 2G. So they tried to get aggressive down B, but that's the problem. I think in particular when you try to fight up against this M80 squad that's so keen at playing those long angles from yellow through green, you're going to have to hopefully hit shots, and that time M80 just catch you by surprise.
Yeah, especially when you're missing some utility being used on the EA side. The call out from Orzander on net on the defensive side, at least on the EA side, net saying, I'm not being contested anywhere. Let's try to see here, because of that early Owl Drone, because we heard the Blade Storm, there's a potential lean towards B. So all the rotate comes in from M80, and that's a nice little flash that came through from Koala Noob just to counteract the setup that 2G was about to do here with their ults.
Oh, Koala Noob.
My God.
Decent timing. Gets aggressive, goes 1 for 1. Importantly, that silence that is down. So their ability to get deep on towards site has now been limited pretty dramatically. The other side of that, though, is that's your only smoke player if you're M80. So they're likely going to have to play off of some pretty raw contact here, you'd think. And they're going to try to maybe pop flash something over through mid. Poison Cloud is up. They're going to push through this. Timing? Not going to work out. Bryce is going to get the read and stay safe away from it.
Yeah, double flash too, and that's going to call the pivot, especially with a knife being thrown towards yellow. B site is now out in the open for 2G to take. But this is going to be an exchange of ults here. Null commands are going to come in from both sides. Eventually, when that ends, there's a pit that should come up from Luis, which would activate the Thrash, which would activate the Hunter's Fury. We'll see what happens now.
Yeah, the Null command actually pushes him back pretty convincingly. So a Viper's Pit is kind of out of the picture now for Luis. Maybe there's one encounter here for the defense to try to play it off. Retake, Luis stepping forward! What in the heavens? He just steps right past yellow. The Hunter's Fury maybe allows him some isolation. Takes a couple with him. Pricey trying to deny the wingman who's getting to work. And it's business hours for BCJ and the wingman. The defuse comes through and M80 continue to put together some score.
And that slight pause gives a chance here for M80 to recollect how they could win this war of attrition between the ultimates, because I've mentioned that Thrash that's being pulled out, by BCJ activates the Hunter's Fury, which would then cancel the Thrash. But then that allows for you to get a Null command out if you actually want to bring it to your side for M80, if it gets to that moment where you're not able to win that aggressive fight here back towards control of yellow, back towards the control of B main. And thankfully here on that 2 versus 2, make that even a 3 versus 2, because they had a Thrash on top of that for M80 to throw and stick the defuse that the last 2 players here, BCJ and Net, could just set the pendulum swings for the trades and for the victory in the round. And immediately we go into a tech pause.
Yeah. M80 trying to stir up the crowd just a touch. Smiles all around. And it's been a heck of a start. Exactly what the doctor ordered, I'll tell you that much, in terms of prescribing the remedy for all of the faults that happened in map number 1. I hate to say it, but it was a pretty embarrassing feat as 2G was just all over it. So this tech pause maybe slows down the momentum in the game, but M80's trying to stir up whatever they can out of the local crowd in Monterey.
Stirring the pot, at least on the defensive side, is actually something that M80 is doing quite well so far. And how aggressive they were on stacks on the A side for the pistol round. And then, again, since this pause that came through from 2G, the timeout that was called 2 rounds ago, there's been a lot more lean from 2G to try to explore this B side to see if they could overtake that. But what has M80 been doing? One was a counter flash into the ults are about to get set up here for a 2 game to take. And the second round is such an aggressive TP coming in from Koala back towards the main, the garage, where that's for sure going to get hurt. And you saw Spike was ready for it. He had the crosshair placement. You just had to win your duel, but that's just a high risk, high reward play there by Koala that ends up being a key factor, because it goes into that duelist versus duelist matchup that Koalanu won, playing as an Omen this time around, and makes it a lot harder here for 2G to really create that space. Because remember, Wyatt was mentioned at the desk. One thing that Spike was doing very well here on this side of 2G is pop flashing through the alternating smokes that was being thrown by Xander and by Koalanu, so that Silence could actually gain that space that was needed. But he's down, which then means those one-way smokes are going to be so hard to deal with in the long run.
Oh, big time. And, you know, the other part about that last round is how important is the fact that the null commands that get exchanged put the Viper's Pit out of commission. Because I think 2Game are literally thinking, hey, we can at least trade out things over towards A. We avoid the play through mid. Maybe there's a chance, or pardon me, towards B. You then have a chance maybe get the spike down with the ability to Viper's Pit it. Especially with no smokes, no paranoias, like it gives you a little bit more post-plant security, but not allowed because of the timing of the null command. So coming off this tech pause should be interesting, I think, just to see how 2Game adjust, because M80, similarly so to what they faced in map number 1, have now created multiple issues for this 2Game offense to have to consider. At the get-go, are we going to get pushed at? We have to spend something, usually a knife, maybe even a recon dart. We have to make sure we're staying safe when the barriers drop. But then beyond that, we're already limited in terms of what we have in terms of executable utility, especially in the face of M80's resilient defensive presence with this comp. How do we get this plant down and then set up a good post plant? Because that's been, I think, the biggest question for 2Game in their offense in their region. They've been better at it here at this particular event, but it still seems to be kind of a question for them, especially in this matchup here today.
Yeah, especially for M80, it almost looks like when you're looking at how the state of these rounds have been going through, that M80 seems to be wanting to play retakes, right? But it's not necessarily the case. It's just your weak side on one end because you actually want to add more pressure towards another. So despite Koalanu TPing towards B main, you still saw in the mid round that double flash that came through from the Dizzy and the KO. So they do want to contest some areas here so that they could isolate really 2G in these post plant scenarios. And even in other sides too, when you're fighting behind the Viper wall and 2G is about to activate, they're actually pushing in to fight back when they have the right amount of numbers here for M80 as well. It's not, hey, let's let them plant, we'll deny the plant with our utility and then just fight back into even gunfights. They actually do just want to fight before 2G has a chance to even set up if they're already there and ready to contest.
Well, we could break this down in a multitude of ways, but we're going to have to wait to see how the action moves as we continue to wait for the pause to lift. And I think just generally, you know, this doesn't really necessarily favor or I think hurt anyone in particular. They're used to it at this point. It's been an event that has seen many tech pauses, so this isn't anything new. So I'm sure the protocols are in place, but like, hey, when this happens, you know, hey, let's just try to keep our cool. You saw, I think on one side, I think we were trying to stir up the crowd, keep the energy going on their side. Where on the other point, 2G, deep breaths, small meditative moments, just try to keep cool and know that this map is far from over, even though the start hasn't been anything particularly graceful for them compared to the last map.
100%. And for M80 to hype up the crowd and being in this position where, again, this is such an important game for M80 that if they lose this one against 2G, that's another year of work that goes down the drain to not be able to ascend here to partnership. And that is going to sting a lot more. Usually, this is going to give a lot of pressure right now for a team like M80, especially when you got this mantle there on that first map. When you look back at how things started against the Guard last year, they actually won their first map 13-11, and then ended up losing 1-3 over the Guard that ascended the Guard into partnership. This time around, they're already starting at the losing end, yet they're still staying calm and cool because they know what to do in these scenarios. They know how to fight from behind. They've already had the experience of fighting from behind, just like they did against All Night yesterday. Again, when it was a 2-0 lead in terms of a series for All Nights that M80 was able to turn back in their favor. For 2G, though, this is the first time that they're making it to the grand final stage. The first time that they're actually playing a BO5. So getting the first map under their belt with a convincing win of a 13-5 scoreline on Sunset, that gives you a lot of confidence to say, hey, we actually could do this. We had 3 different opportunities that we made through to this moment, not thanks to us, but thanks to other people. So let's just make sure it doesn't go to waste. And so far, they haven't wasted that opportunity in the first map of this series. This time around, I still think that it's a little bit too early on Icebox for them to decide if it's like, oh crap, we're running out of ideas, because they have been, again, pressuring the A side a lot more at the very beginning, and now only just starting to prod towards B. That said, if you're able to muster a little bit up here, muster a little bit of rounds coming in on your attack side to even 3 or 4, you're still going to be looking pretty comfortable here on your defensive side, because you could put a lot of responsibility onto Silence again, as does Jet, where he could lock down that one side of the map, and he could do that quite well.
If he gets the operator, though, I think that's the biggest part about it, right? Like
100%.
That becomes the flex weapon, and one of the reasons that, you know, again, this 2-game esports squad was able to best M80 last time around. I mean, it was an unbelievable individual performance from Silence. On the offensive side, he was finding value, getting deep in towards the sites. But yeah, defensively, the operator in hand, he wasn't missing. 7, I think, or 8 kills that he was able to put together of his 25 total. So good stuff there in terms of what you could trust. Now, again, the other part about this is, hey, if you're 2G, you're on a bit of a limited buy here. So if you go down 7-2, it's not the end of the world, but you've got to hopefully come out and put something together to start creating some new trends and patterns that M80 will have to deal with, because once again, we're getting aggressive. This time it's down middle, and Nismo will find one through Tube, leaving the Viper's Pit and Net and the Killjoy to deal with the rest of the hit coming over towards A.
I was just about to say, how did Louise sneak through all of that? But now the Pit comes out aggressively on the defensive side for M80. They're wrapping from behind, but there's still players there from M80, so that's going to stop any type of surprises or shenanigans coming out until this happens, though.
Silence, a little hardcore on top of 410. Able to put together an elimination. The Killjoy will be able to detain, though, off of the lockdown. No follow-up going to be here for M80, but I think most importantly, they hold the site, and of course, with that, now they hold advantage over the top of the spike, which has been left over towards the left side of the A site. There it is in the picture-in-picture. Viper's Pit has also been reaffirmed as a major defensive threat.
Right now, at least for 2G, though, they've done a great job doing this econ damage in this half buy that they've brought. Zap again with another hero rifle coming through, but they've expended 2 ults on the defensive side to try to win this round. This is actually quite good for 2G in the long run of this half.
Wait.
Till Zap, okay. Not this
Zap's
time.
still alive.
Not
Hold on a second.
Not this time.
Not this time. But you're right. I mean, again, it's, you know, in terms of the weaponry, the economy is not going to be hampered too much. Just simply due to the fact that, again, everyone was over about 3-4K. But like you mentioned, the ultimates that are spent definitely opened the door a touch in terms of 2G coming back into this next buy round, and they will talk about it, knowing that this round right here can set this whole second quarter of this half into motion for them.
And now there's already another tactical pause. So I'm assuming, if I'm not mistaken, this is their second and only one that was left. So they're going to use this right now. And I think it's just an opportunity for them to maybe think that, okay, well, they've used a lockdown and they've used a Viper's Pit on M80 side. There's an opportunity for us now to work around that map a little bit more. I think this is a timeout that's being called here by both Phasor and Yushi that says, hey, in these 5-on-5 scenarios where we finally have economy to work with, and especially that Luis was able to sneak through down towards middle, there's an opportunity for us to default here and really pull these rotates out and maybe win the round now for 2G.
Yeah.
And that for me also shows for 2G that they're putting a lot of confidence in winning the defensive side. So you're just trying to scrap this 3rd or 4th round, maybe even 5th round if you can here on your attack side, and you should still be sitting comfortably for 2-game.
Well, I don't know if we can lay out any more conditions here, Vanzilli. We've covered it all, it feels like. Attack pause will wrap, and we will jump back into round 10. Again, a key one here. Offensive lockdown at the ready. Offensive Viper's Pit at the ready. Those two in combination of each other feel like it should just be a round winner. But what does M80 have in store for us over towards B? A double stack up inside the cubby. Dark cover to block part of this angle. The only question will be, does 2G even bother with this play through green? And they're going to use an owl drone instead, so these players at cubby will have to get rid of their presence, at least for now.
Yeah, and it gets shot quite early too, where the owl drone didn't give a chance to look into the cubby. So right now for M80, they reinsert Qualinoob in that spot. But with the knife that only spotted BCJ in the very beginning, that is the call now for 2G to maybe think that M80 are playing a little bit more anchored up towards the B side.
Yeah. There's also the ability here, if M80 do give up on this presence through green, they can use it from the shadows, and they see it. Whoa. That's an important setup in terms of knowing that the hit is on the way. Lockdown will be spent first. 2G will use this to plant. Viper's Pit, you would assume, would come afterwards to try to get themselves some advantage on the post-plant setup. There it is. Viper's Pit placed. Nano Swarm doing a little bit of chip damage. Not a ton, but a little. And that will be enough now for the retake. Start coming through. Good reveal! Oh, the timing of the recon vault is chef's kiss. Koala trying to work his way on the backside of the pit. Him and Koala Noob doing this without any flashes. One smoke available. Pardon me? Does he get it more? He's looking for it. Koala Noob turns that into a second. Luis, back of the side, not going to get seen, and 2G will take the round.
And now we're seeing a lot of value coming out from the IGL Zap, not only in the fragging department, but into the utility as well. You talked about the beautiful timing, too, that came through and ping 3 players trying to flood back in. Another one of those moments where M80 wanted to continue to dictate the pace, where they don't want to give a chance here for 2G to set up as soon as the spike gets planted. No utilities coming through. I feel like even for the defensive retake, they just wanted to drop inside the pit all the way back towards Dice and fight back against 2G. But that puts a wrench in the plans for sure. And that timeout becomes a nice conversion for 2G.
Yep.
Although they expended 2 of their ults for that one too, and now BCJ has a thrash of his own here for them to play with on the defensive side for M80.
It's a deeper knife thrown this time for 2G towards A. They do scout out 2 players. Koala Noob, most importantly, with the operator in hand. 2G are stepping away from it. Whether they know he's got the op or not is outside of the picture. Defensive knife. That's going to reveal just about everything. So that's enough for Nismo to say, I need some help here, boys. And more importantly, not only is he going to get some good help, he's going to get a little bit of a lurk through Net, who may be able to hear a cross rotation back to A.
This is important here for Net not to overextend, though, because he dies. That's a full A-side ultimate.
No.
He loses the fight.
Standing ahead.
Look at the instant pivot now for 2G. All of M80 were focused here to just fight back towards the B main. You needed that player to just stay alive and just to watch the cross back towards A. Now, yes, despite them booking it towards the A side, there's still only 1 player, but it's still Nismo.
Yeah,
he's been on fire at this point before.
Really good from this knife to reveal 3. There's a moment of concern because of the delayed nature of this hit that there may be a reroute back to B. Fragment's also very well placed. Nismo almost combines the damage out of the rifle to secure an elimination, but it's Xander through mid. Deal with the lurk of Zap in the first place. Nismo goes 1 for 1. BCJ has the thrash on the field. That's going to detain. On the hunt is Xander. Finds his 3rd in the round. Looking for 4, but Spike is doing the same. He's going to be able to get this down. Paranoia is going to cut across, but he doesn't care if he's nearsighted in this corner, but it doesn't make a difference. Koala Noob sees the spike down, spams him through the boxes, and M80 will get their aid.
And that round was saved by Nismo from beginning to the end. The first knife going towards B main, it actually does hit Luis. It nullifies the wall. They can't pull it up. It allows Nismo and Koala Noob to set up a defensive line. Another smoke being thrown towards yellow. And then when Net dies, Nismo gets a second knife that detains 3 players, or not detains, but disables 3 players where they can't use util on a hit, which then gives enough chance here, enough time for M80 to come back and fight, especially when those 3 guys are hit by the knife. You're starting to feel like you have to activate towards middle. It gives a chance there for Xander to win his 1v1 at that spot. For Koala Noob to close it in. M80 now in the lead by 5. And 2G, last round here of the half. At least has 2 ults and rifles, a couple of rifles to work with, and they want to go quick towards this B main.
Drone trying to scout things out. M80 looking to possibly break the timing. Knives are out, and they're going to reset. Silence simply gets 2. Updrafting away. Quality in trouble. Oh, the aim is scattering on both sides, but Spikes will save the day. Again, this is a bit of an eco here from 2G, and they're finding extreme value. Just down to Xander.
Spike planted.
It's a
Got all that done
1v4.
without the rifles.
He's got himself a very tricky spot, and he's stuck in a corner. There's just no way he gets a go at this.
He's going to have to. It's the last round. And I think 2G knows here that Xander, to what he's done to their compatriots over Galoris, they do not want to overextend. So it just comes down to the protocols. As soon as he has the spike, hello, 4 players to peek, 4 players to spam, and Pricey to claim that kill.
Yeah.
Allowing here to narrow the gap on the first half.
Yeah, and I'll think both teams, I think, are going to be pretty okay with the result of this first half. I think with how it starts, you start to look at M80 saying, all right, they're right back into the mix. It feels a lot like yesterday. On the other side, though, good stuff after the pause for 2G, kind of shifting some patterns and trends at the end of the half towards their favor. And being able to salvage 4 is not the worst news in the world. I think it would be a little bit of miss in terms of if you said, hey, 8-4 on your offensive half, are you okay with that? You know, maybe they would have liked more overall, especially considering how they played it the last time around. But considering how the half went, being able to still scrape together 4 is important, and now we can kind of reset the energy going into the second half.
I don't know if Silence was able to get 2 openers of the Blade Storm while he was getting gooped too. That was pretty crazy how things opened up. It went from that to what, a Spectre double kill in order for this round to be converted for 2G, where they had 3 rifles around that and 2 other ults. None of them needed to be used pretty much on the openers, and that change of tempo coming out from 2G, I guess, kind of surprised M80 here. And again, those tactical timeouts coming out on the defense, or what was on the attack side, sorry, for 2G, was just to try to salvage a couple of these rounds on the attack. They have nothing left outside of this halftime that seems to be fully taken advantage of now by FaithZor.
Yeah, absolutely the case. Well, looking at just kind of how this map has fared for both these 2 squads as we swap the sides, offensively, that was the favored side, really for both squads. But for the defensive M80, they have looked really, really solid, I think, just on this particular event, which is great news for them in terms of how you were able to obviously find 8 here. Now moving into an offensive side that was arguably one of their more successful halves when they were playing in Americas in particular for Challengers. And I think the thing about this is now for 2Game, you don't get the explosive start from Silence. So now you've got to try to find a way to receive all of this incoming executable utility from this M80 offense. So a lot of things kind of on the table here. Both teams have shown good success. So it all kicks off with this pistol, which have been 50-50 to this point. See if that stays the case.
I just love that M80 in this pistol still wants to brute force the B main. Knowing that last time around, again, we talked about the KO Pop Flash fighting against the util being utilized by M80, and that was activated from BCJ throwing a Dizzy. And this time they're just walking through.
Look at this nano sword. Aggressively placed over towards Yellow, trying to keep this angle for Luis. It does get knifed though, so it can't be activated. Net gonna find the initial trade, and Prize takes a ton of damage through the poison screen. So that'll be a spike plant, 4v4, and M80 will have all this, well, I would say they usually have all this post-plant utility, but they spent just about everything they had to get the execute. Now it's just down to who hits their shots.
Yeah, at least on 2G's end, they have util to retake this. Silence with the Sheriff, shot darts that's going to come through.
Follow up though, after the knife fades. Now it's down to, again, if you can hit your shots. M80 in a little bit of trouble here. But a flank from Koala. Nubi gets red, and Zap will put it out of the picture as a 4v4 post plant. And it will only be a 3-for-1 exchange at the end. Good stuff here from 2G, and a critical pistol goes their way to bring the deficit back to just within 3.
And the ballsiness from M80 to just walk contact at the very beginning, and as soon as they're about to cross the line where maybe somebody could be watching towards the default, they throw the knife towards Yellow, and that was perfect because it actually did hit the cage at the same time on the defensive side, which didn't give him a chance here to activate this nanoswarm right at Yellow that he called was going to be a great thing there to help the defensive end, the Viper on that side to hold his angle. But it becomes a beautiful retake towards the end. Over swings coming out from M80 just because they were getting flooded by utility and players running through. And it just got caught. You just had to win your duels at that point. And it's 2G that White mentioned before. Plethora of agents they can play, and they have great firepower under their belt.
Snakebite just gonna get ran through. Lots of decay. Wingman denied from finding a plant though. So now M80 are a bit stuck right off the next side of 410. And Luis is just so aggressive. I mean, wow. Absolute domination. He's not done yet. Oh, maybe he is. Nisbo puts him out of commission plus an extra. So decent here in terms of being able to limit the strength of the bonus coming up next. But this feels like it's going to be well without reach, and 2G will bring this within 2.
We'll take that, right? Just licking your wounds, 12 HP remaining, get 2 kills. Just trying to move it through for a plant, but that's how it's nicely readjusted here by 2G. A poison orb right by the orb, snakebite at the bottom. You saw that M80 was trying to run through. All of them were being decayed and vulnerable at the same time. They had almost no HP to work with. And that just makes it much more difficult when you're waiting for the decay and the vulnerability to come back and just staring at the walls, trying to find a timing to say, hey, let's try to hit this at a certain time. But then Luis finds his own timing through there and doesn't allow M80 to go for that setup for a plant. So this is a great pistol anti-ego conversion for 2G. And now an opportunity to bring some strong weapons into their bonus round, because I'm pretty sure there was at least a Guardian going into that one.
There was, yeah.
Where I would give it to Silence so he could watch it here at the long range.
Yeah, they had a Guardian and a Bulldog, and that's what they'll bring forward. There was a Spectre in the mix, but that will not be collected. Instead, it's going to be Silence on the Marshall. Okay.
Good enough.
Full rifle plus Guardian on the other side. I love this. Luis gets revealed. That knife doesn't necessarily mean he's playing forward. They know, of course, that there's going to be some sort of a stack, and that might be enough for M80 to say, let's not get crossed up by something strange. Defensive knife clears. That should be enough for 2G to commit, saying either we push forward or we get out of here, one of the two, and they're going to actually do a little bit of both at the same time.
There's a big test for Silence in this position now.
Oh, whips the opener. Dizzy keeps the angle free and clear for Net to take the dub. Little bro able to get the plant off, no worries. And the post-plant setup will be largely right on top of the site. 1v1 here on the backside of the play could be critical if 2G were to open up another angle of approach, but Net is watching it, and Net for a second wouldn't have a chance to lose it. This is the first 2 shots, connects on the third, and then Koala and Nismo from the front have no worries securing a Black Light flawless and denying the bonus.
It would have been unfortunate there that one time that he goes for a sidestep. That's when Luis peaks. It could have been the fight that Luis could have won there, but thankfully he stops that from happening. All right, we got a little bit of love here to Sabrosa. But overall, at least a Black Light flawless going in the second round. Back into the gun round that was invested here by M80, which is great because we talked about value that 2G were going to bring here with a Guardian, a Marshall, and a Bulldog. Yet going into how they executed towards the site, there was no opportunities here for 2G to really stop that flood to happen, because most of that plan was trying to deny B main. And that one knife, as you mentioned, didn't really give you Luis's position of where he was positioned, but it gave numbers. And realizing that there was 3 players there, they didn't want any of that smoke there for M80.
Well, this is the first look at Silence on the operator. It was a key tool for 2G to use on their defensive side last they played M80 on this map. He's looking to get aggressive. Knife will not reveal him, and he says, all right, let me get back to work here. Takes a different angle away. Here's the orb being collected. Null command spent, and once more. Silence backs up, but Nismo, whoa! I mean, whoa! Blows him out of the water. Should be a free plant, and 2G need to decide how they want to try to approach this.
That was a rare, especially when he's a null command. He pulses when he's going to be coming, yet still gets that win against Silence. That's a huge kill to start.
And here we go. Now the retake on the way. All of it coming from kitchen side through mid. Prize has deleted the sentry turret over towards mid. That's going to keep Net a bit more interested. Flash out of the dark cover. Going to get pushed off. And 2G, if they don't commit here or find a pick, they may have to back off. And, well, there's not going to be a choice. Now it's just down to Zap, who will prefer to at least try to find a way to save this Vandal, but there is possible threat. Net on the corner. Timing doesn't work out for the peak, and Zap will get out of there.
For now, he's still heading towards the ramp, and Net just went for the peak, and yeah, it seems that it might be a moment there that Zap will be able to save his weapon after all, but that opener was everything to kick things off there, courtesy of Nismo. Once again, activating very early into a null command on the attack side. And again, reiterating how much value he's gotten on the attack side for Nismo as this KO. And usually you want to give it to Koala being the one that's going to open things up, but he's playing an Omen. So a lot of that responsibility is going to have to be on Nismo pushing forward here with the team. And also leveraging this composition maybe as to why you're playing this no duelist, because you have the wingman that's going to be moving in to go for the plant. A lot of the focus is going to go down to that. So he's going to be the tip of the spear, opening things up and creating that space so that M80 could fight.
Aggressive setup coming over for the defense. It's just on pistol upgrades. And the peek through the rafters works out. Ooh, almost a chance for a trade, but Spike is able to stay alive, if only just barely. Luis holding one corner. The hero rifle in Zap's hands. Still watching for a cross down through the ropes, and he does see Koala, but cannot connect for a secondary elimination. So M80 will back off and try to restructure this 4v5.
One of those moments where the one-way smoke being thrown in the attack kind of bites them for M80, because that was just to prevent a push coming out from the short side of orb, because they know that 2G's on the lower buy. Yet you saw Spike move in confidently towards jail, gets that opener, and gives a chance here for 2G with a numbers advantage.
Recon dart out for the defense. Xander goes high. Oh, the Dizzy gets missed. Luis is stuck in the corner. Dash does well. Spike, we know what he can do with his pistol in hand. He's able to turn this into another at low HP, but Zap isolated, can't do anything more. Just down to Prize and Silence on their way over with just Sheriffs, 2v2.
Spike planted.
A lot of low health pools though, Net in particular, just about a shot away. The drop down doesn't work out. Silence, what's the call? 2 smokes, updraft at the ready. Tries to go into the corner. Net immediately below him. But Silence doesn't know if there's been some sort of a backup, so he'll re-clear the backside of the site. That gives away his position. The re-wrap, trying to see if he can catch a corner. The stack up for M80, works out, and M80 take us to 11.
Beautiful round there by Net to kick things off too and save that round for M80 because Spike was looking dangerous with that Sheriff just around the 410. Continuing some great shots in that area. And dropping 2 players, and even a flash came through that blunt in Net in the very beginning, but he was able to just readapt and refocus and get those picks and a 4K into the round. It almost looked like you talked about the position that they had on that 2 versus 1. They weren't really ready there for M80 to set up the crossfire where Spike maybe, and even Silence with the way that he's playing as his Jet, could really win that 1 versus 2. He went for a different type of path and gives a chance here for M80 to reposition. Again, this is quick now on the defensive side.
Yeah. Quality tried for something cheeky to get over towards the top side of 410. It gets read perfectly. Silence holding the other angle, making sure there's no follow-up. Aldrun will clear the space, at least most of it. Doesn't fully get in to check the last 2 players for M80 that are holding. And instead, Net is going to go on a bit of a hero mission. Try to play an island towards B. Op shot misses, but Net opened the door. And okay, is there maybe an opportunity for Net to take another 1v1 here? Knife is out. Prize in the corner. Nano alarm bot reveals that Net's here, and a couple of shots will push him back off the angle. Now the lockdown will open up the site for M80.
Great play by Net. I was almost scared of that moment because he was running with his knife out, but it was only to jump peek, and that actually forced the shot out of Prizey, and also forced Utility to come out for the KJ. He tried to go for a hero play, didn't work out, and it seems to be the round for M80 towards the end. And that's the call to don't pull out your pit yet. We have a Thrash on top of that. Don't deny visibility. But again, just to get back to what Net was doing, he forced out that utility off the jump peak. Prizey didn't have anything left, rather, to hold that push. And then a null command just forced the hand of 2G to play a little bit more passively.
Yep.
And for even Prizey to swing out because he was going to get detained no matter what, if he was going to stay within that range. So he tried to go for the hero play to drop that spike and give a chance here for Zap and
That had to be
win.
called too. I mean, Zap had the ability to possibly counter with the Hunter's Fury, but they say, no, let me see if I can get the spike carrier down before that lockdown becomes an effect. But that call doesn't work out. Net on the hunt. We'll find one more, at least. Yep, that'll be it. Silence will hold on to the operator, but do or die time now. And like you mentioned, you still have things like the Thrash and the Viper's Pit. So if you're looking at that from 2G, you got to be thinking, we need an opening pick. We need to try to contest this spike before that execute can come through.
Yeah, you have to think on the fly pretty much too as the IGL for Zap, because those 2 timeouts were already used in the first half just to try to get your 4 rounds in the first half. So now you're looking at from the UI, you're like, oh crap, they do have 2 more ults to work with. What do we have on our side? Thankfully, we still have that Hunter's Fury that from that previous round from Zap. Activating is also Spike and Luis. And it starts things off with covering towards this B side, and I like this play with the alarm bot too. It allows your Luis to solo anchor this front B side, and for them to converge a little bit more into a defensive hold towards middle between Prizey and Zap.
Yeah. Well, M80 looked like they want to just walk in and challenge this Viper's Pit. Luis backs out, gets the integrity back to full, and M80 are still maybe considering a little spam over towards the backside of yellow, seeing if maybe that would connect, but doesn't work out. And now with 60 seconds on the clock, M80 are going to take their efforts to A.
Yeah, I think it's a good call here for M80, because if we tried to go for a Thrash, there's still that Hunter's Fury that could cancel it. So let's go for a pop towards the A side. Net's been inserted towards pipes.
Dizzy doesn't reveal anything. Silence will have to play a hidden hope type situation, but then backs away. Knives are exchanged. The offensive one will connect more than the defensive one will. But Silence not dissuaded, still holds this corner. Net is going to say, come back my direction. But if he gets caught, if Prize sees this, that might be the end of the round. Omen's also going to teleport deep. Flash on out. Prize gets completely isolated. The Viper's Pit now all of a sudden means that Luis is a bit isolated. Offensively, BCJ going to get the plant off. Hunter's Fury trying to come through. It's chaos. Everything's being spent here. What could possibly be the last round of this map. Net Holds the line through 2. Has a chance for more. Maybe lines it up, but no. And instead, it's Zap who gets Nismo down with the shock dart. Plan has to be held. Just barely beats the time. Luis trying to find some spam. Connects. Now it's just down to Xander, who doubles up with the shorty. Finds himself a 1v2. Inside of his Viper's pit with the Vandal. 1 snake bite remaining. There it goes. Zap, hit by it, maybe not fully. Shorty's back again, Zap still holding, and Xander, does he check it in time? No, he doesn't. We got more Icebox.
And just missed as well so that we could actually stick onto that spike for Zap. But my God, did that get chaotic. So much of that util heavily pushed and used towards M80 side just to try to take down that jet, just to try to take down Silence. And that could have been a paranoia from Kulanu that could have been super important for that refight back towards Orange. It turned out, yes, they still got the kill off the Silence, but it still activated that null command on the defensive side that then became a Cypher cam for the 2 players to start flooding back off the information of Spike being down, literally as the KO. So that 2G could somehow win that 2 versus 1 versus Xander, who once again could have had a historic moment to clutch another 4 versus 1. But unfortunately, 1 snake bite that fell a little bit too short, forced his hand out, lost that fight to Luis, and now we have 2G back somehow in this game.
Yeah.
And with this tactical pause called by M80, that's another opportunity as well for the coaching staff of 2G to talk back and how they can bring back this game on Icebox.
I think most importantly, it's not just the window back into another possible round, but maybe into possible overtime with a couple of massive ultimates now off the table for M80. So yeah, the timeout feels a little bit warranted for M80, talking about, okay, how do we get this done the old-fashioned way? No extra presence in a lot of these key ults. The lockdown was spent just a couple of rounds ago. The Viper's pit down and out. Hey, you've got nothing besides the Thrash. So that's what's going to be considered. 2G, not fully healthy on this purchase. A couple of light armors. Operator still purchased. Koala Noob just teleporting all over the map. And Prize will respect this. A couple of pings, you see them on the map, mean that the defense are aware that this could possibly be a play. Luis catches 1 piece of timing. The 1v1, though, doesn't go his way. Good damage, but BCJ's Mosh Pit turns it in favor of M80 for the first.
And Prizey's now pinched, so he has to give up the site. He has no choice. Just all of that TP coming out from Koala, who just thinned out the defensive side where they could focus a 3 versus 1 against Luis.
Yeah.
A great execution to start. Now let's see if M80 could hold the pulse plant once again.
And you have to hit this from multiple points if you're 2G, due to the fact that the Thrash has been recollected. Silence, also with an operator. Not going to feel good trying to retake with this, so he'll track into top 2. Just make sure no one's still lingering inside this site, but M80 are happy to play this through yellow and green. Offensive wall goes back up. Flash comes through. Recon dart behind this. Xander is in the backline, but only gets 1. Quality follows up for his trade. 4v2 situation. Silence still on the operator. BCJ throws the Thrash back out again. It's Nismo putting it over the finish line. A 13-7 response, a significant one, as M80 tie up our series at 1.
Not given a chance here for 2G to come back from a tactical pause to reassess how they could play the defensive side. It was basically pedal to the metal for M80 on executing on another B-side split, and now they tied up the game in this series 1-1. They've activated and woken up very early in this series as well for M80, and now we're into a treat. A possibility now with how these maps are going in the favors of those that pick their maps.
Yes.
We're looking at Sunset 1 here by 2G, Icebox 1 by M80. There is a possibility to see Bind. That's never been played before here by M80 this year.
That would be feisty to say the least. Des talked about it. Coming out of the upper bracket, you get the benefit of the veto process. But the response for M80 is significant, and now we reset this into a flat-out best of 3 with a really interesting map coming up. We'll tease you, let you marinate on that as we send things to break and come back with the desk right after this.
The game starts long before the game starts. And warm hands are faster hands. Gain the upper hand and power up your pregame warm-up with Zippo hand warmers.